Margaret Henderson had always been curious about the old military bunker hidden beneath her property. For 43 years she had lived in the farmhouse her late husband built, knowing something lay buried in the hills behind her garden. The concrete entrance, barely visible through decades of overgrown ivy and brambles, had been sealed when they first moved in. Local rumors spoke of abandoned government experiments from the Cold War era, but Margaret never paid much attention to gossip. On this particular autumn morning, her arthritic hands gripped the metal detector she had borrowed from her grandson Tommy. At 78 years old, Margaret still possessed the adventurous spirit that had driven her to become a nurse in Vietnam decades earlier. She had decided to search for the antique jewelry her grandmother claimed to have buried somewhere on the property during the Great Depression. The metal detector buzzed frantically as she approached the bunker entrance. Margaret pushed aside the thick vines, revealing a heavy steel door marked with faded radiation symbols and warnings in multiple languages. Her heart raced with excitement rather than fear. She had seen worse things during her years in field hospitals. The door, surprisingly, was not locked. The handle turned with a loud grinding sound and stale air rushed out. Margaret clicked on her flashlight and stepped into the darkness. The corridor stretched ahead, lined with pipes and cables that hummed with an unexpected electrical current. Someone or something was still powering this place. As she ventured deeper, the temperature dropped significantly. Her breath formed small clouds in the frigid air. The hallway opened into a vast chamber filled with rows of cylindrical pods, each one glowing with a soft blue light. Frost covered every surface, and the air carried a metallic taste that reminded her of winter mornings. Margaret approached the nearest pod, wiping away the ice crystals from its transparent window. Inside, she expected to find some sort of scientific equipment or perhaps preserved specimens. Instead, she gasped at the sight of a creature unlike anything she had ever imagined. The being was roughly humanoid but covered in scales that shimmered between deep emerald and midnight blue. Its face was elongated, almost reptilian, with closed eyes that seemed far too large for its skull. Most striking were the folded appendages along its back. Wings that resembled those of a bat but with a membrane that appeared almost crystalline. The creature was tall, perhaps 8 feet, and its chest rose and fell with slow, deliberate breaths. Margaret studied the control panel beside the pod. Despite the alien symbols, some elements were surprisingly familiar. Temperature gauges, heart rate monitors, and what appeared to be brain activity readings, all showing stable vital signs. This was clearly some form of medical life support system, far more advanced than anything she had encountered during her nursing career. She moved to the next pod, then the next. Each contained a similar being, all in what appeared to be deep hibernation or medical stasis. Some pods showed warning lights, their occupants' vital signs weaker than the others. Margaret counted 47 pods in total, with roughly a third showing signs of system failure. Her medical training kicked in automatically. These beings, whatever they were, needed help. The failing life support systems would eventually kill them if nothing was done. Margaret examined the central control console, a massive array of screens and buttons that somehow felt intuitive despite its alien design. One screen displayed what appeared to be a countdown timer. The numbers were in an unfamiliar script, but they were clearly decreasing. Margaret estimated they had perhaps weeks, maybe months, before the power systems failed completely. She noticed movement in her peripheral vision and turned to see one of the creatures stirring within its pod. The being's large eyes fluttered open, revealing irises that swirled with colors Margaret had no names for. For a moment that felt like an eternity, human and alien stared at each other through the frosted glass. The creature's mouth moved, forming silent words. Margaret pressed her ear against the pod, but the thick material muffled any sound. The being raised one clawed hand and pressed it against the glass from the inside, directly opposite Margaret's palm. Even through the barrier, she felt a strange warmth, almost like an electric current. Suddenly, images flooded Margaret's mind. She saw vast ships traveling between stars, worlds covered in crystal cities, and beings like the one before her soaring through alien skies. She witnessed a great battle, explosions tearing through space, and damaged vessels falling toward a blue-green planet she recognized as Earth. The mental connection lasted only seconds, but Margaret understood. These beings were refugees, survivors of some cosmic conflict who had crashed on Earth decades ago. They had placed themselves in cryogenic sleep, waiting for rescue that never came. Now their technology was failing and they were dying one by one. The creature in the pod looked at her with what Margaret interpreted as desperate hope. Despite the vast differences between their species, she recognized the universal expression of someone in need of help. Her nursing instincts, dormant for over a decade, surged back to life. Margaret spent the next hour examining the facility more thoroughly. She found supply rooms filled with strange materials, laboratories with equipment she couldn't begin to understand, and living quarters designed for beings much larger than humans. Most importantly, she discovered that the facility's main computer system had interfaces in multiple languages, including broken but readable English. The translation protocols revealed the true situation. The beings were called the Draconis, an ancient spacefaring race fleeing the destruction of their homeworld. They had crash-landed on Earth in 1952, during the height of the Cold War. The American military had found them, studied them briefly, then classified the entire project and buried it when funding was redirected to nuclear weapons research. The Draconis had been forgotten, left to sleep in their failing pods while the world above them moved on. Their ship's automated systems had been gradually breaking down, and now critical life support failures were occurring weekly. Margaret looked around the chamber at the dying beings and made a decision that would change everything. She was just one old woman with nursing experience, but she had spent her entire life helping those who needed it most. These aliens were no different from the wounded soldiers she had once cared for. They were hurt, alone, and running out of time. She pulled out her cell phone, relieved to see she still had 2 bars of signal even underground. Margaret scrolled through her contacts until she found Tommy's number. Her grandson was studying biomedical engineering at the state university, and more importantly, he had always believed his grandmother's stories about strange lights in the sky. As she waited for him to answer, Margaret placed her hand back on the pod containing the awakened Draconis. This time the mental connection was clearer, and she projected her own thoughts back, images of help coming, of medical care, of hope. The ancient alien smiled, revealing rows of crystalline teeth, and Margaret knew she had just begun the most important mission of her life. Tommy Henderson had always trusted his grandmother's instincts, but her phone call that morning tested even his faith in her judgment. Margaret's voice carried an urgency he had never heard before as she described alien beings dying in a secret bunker beneath her farm. Most people would have assumed their elderly relative was experiencing some form of dementia, but Tommy knew better. His grandmother had been sharp as a tack her entire life, and her stories about strange phenomena around the farm had always proven accurate. Within 2 hours, Tommy arrived at the farmhouse with his girlfriend Sarah Chen, a medical student specializing in emergency care, and his roommate Marcus Williams, who was pursuing a doctorate in xenobiology, a field he had chosen partly because of his grandmother's tales about impossible creatures she claimed to have seen over the years. Margaret led them through the hidden entrance, watching their faces change from skepticism to wonder to professional determination as they entered the cryogenic chamber. Sarah immediately began examining the failing life support systems with the same intensity she brought to trauma cases, while Marcus stared in amazement at beings he had only theorized about in his academic work. Tommy focused on the central computer system, his engineering background helping him understand the basic operational principles despite the alien interface. The translation protocol Margaret had discovered revealed detailed medical files for each Draconis, including their species' biological requirements and the specific treatments they needed to survive the prolonged hibernation. The protein synthesis in their cells is breaking down, Sarah announced after reviewing the medical data. They need specific amino acid combinations that their failing systems can't provide anymore. Without intervention, they'll start dying within days. Marcus had managed to access historical files about the Draconis' arrival on Earth. The data painted a picture of a peaceful, highly advanced civilization that had been destroyed by an aggressive species called the Void Hunters. The survivors had fled across the galaxy, seeking refuge on worlds that could support their physiology. According to this, there are Draconis colonies scattered across dozens of star systems, Marcus explained. But they lost contact with Earth after the military classified the project. They probably think these survivors died decades ago, Tommy discovered that the facility's communication array was still partially functional. but it lacked the power to send a signal strong enough to reach other star systems. The bunker's nuclear reactor had been designed to last a century, but component failures had reduced its efficiency to dangerous levels. Margaret watched her grandson and his friends work with the same satisfaction she had felt watching young medics save lives during the war. These brilliant young people understood what needed to be done, and more importantly, they were willing to do it regardless of the risks. The awakened Draconis, who had identified himself through the mental link as Kithra, served as their guide through the complex medical procedures. His telepathic abilities allowed him to communicate detailed information about his species' physiology and the specific care each hibernating individual required. Sarah worked tirelessly to synthesize the necessary proteins using the facility's automated systems. Her medical training translated surprisingly well to alien physiology, and she discovered that many of the Draconis' biological processes were similar to Earth reptiles and birds. The crystalline membrane of their wings required specific mineral compounds, while their scaled skin needed regular applications of a substance similar to natural oils. Tommy and Marcus collaborated on repairing the failing reactor, using a combination of human engineering principles and Draconis technology. They discovered that the aliens' power systems were based on controlled fusion reactions that were remarkably clean and efficient. With Kithara's guidance, they managed to replace several critical components and restore the reactor to 70% capacity. As the systems stabilized, more Draconis began showing signs of consciousness. Margaret found herself serving as a liaison between the species, using her natural empathy and decades of medical experience to comfort beings awakening to find their world changed beyond recognition. The first major crisis came when one of the pods suffered a complete system failure. A young Draconis female named Valara began dying despite their efforts to transfer her to a functional unit. Sarah and Margaret worked together, combining human medical techniques with alien technology to perform emergency surgery that no textbook had ever described. Margaret's steady hands, hardened by years of battlefield medicine, proved invaluable as she assisted in procedures that pushed the boundaries of both species' understanding. The operation lasted 14 hours, with Kithara providing constant, telepathic guidance while Sarah improvised surgical techniques for an anatomy she was learning as she worked. When Valara's vital signs finally stabilized, the relief in the chamber was palpable. Through the mental link, Margaret sensed the profound gratitude of the Draconis community. These beings had spent 70 years in a dreamless sleep, convinced they would die alone and forgotten on an alien world. Now they were awakening to find humans risking everything to save them. Tommy made a breakthrough with the communication array, determining that they could boost its power by connecting it to the regional electrical grid. However, doing so would require bypassing multiple security systems and potentially alerting government agencies to their activities. The military classified this project for a reason, Tommy explained to the group. If we start drawing massive amounts of power, someone's going to notice. We need to decide if we're willing to expose everything. Margaret looked around the chamber, at the faces of her family and the alien beings they were trying to save. The decision was easier than she had expected. During the war, she had seen what happened when politics and bureaucracy interfered with saving lives. Sometimes doing the right thing meant ignoring the rules. "We're not stopping now," she declared. "These beings trusted us with their lives. We're going to honor that trust." Sarah had been monitoring the Draconis recovery and made an important discovery. The aliens possessed remarkable regenerative abilities when properly nourished, and several of the awakened individuals were recovering much faster than expected. Their cellular repair mechanisms were far more advanced than anything found in human biology. Marcus realized that the Draconis might possess medical knowledge that could revolutionize human healthcare. Their healing techniques, based on controlled cellular regeneration and genetic repair, could eliminate countless diseases and extend human lifespan significantly. The potential benefits to both species were enormous. As more pods were repaired and additional Draconis awakened, the chamber filled with a sound Margaret had never expected: alien laughter. Despite their draconic appearance, these beings displayed emotions and social bonds remarkably similar to humans. They mourned their lost companions, celebrated successful treatments, and expressed genuine affection for their human rescuers. Kythera shared more details about Draconis society through the mental link. Their species had been spacefaring for millennia, living in harmony with dozens of other alien races until the Void Hunters began their campaign of destruction. The Draconis were natural healers and scholars, their civilization built around the preservation of knowledge and life. The irony was not lost on Margaret that humanity's first contact with an alien species involved humans serving as medical caregivers for beings whose own healing abilities far surpassed their own. It seemed fitting that understanding between species would begin with the universal language of compassion. By the end of their second week in the bunker, 23 Draconis had been successfully revived, with more pods stabilized and their occupants showing improved vital signs. The facility hummed with activity as humans and aliens worked together to save the remaining hibernating survivors. However, their success had not gone unnoticed. Tommy's power draws had triggered monitoring systems, and government satellites had detected unusual energy signatures coming from the supposedly abandoned site. Unknown to the rescue team, unmarked vehicles were already positioning themselves around Margaret's farm. The real test of human Draconis cooperation was about to begin. The black SUVs arrived at Margaret's farm just after dawn, their occupants moving with the practiced efficiency of people accustomed to cleaning up situations that officially never happened. Agent Rebecca Torres had been briefed on Project Hibernation during her flight from Washington, a classified file that detailed the discovery and subsequent burial of an alien crash site in 1952. What the briefing hadn't prepared her for was the discovery that the project was no longer buried. Satellite imagery showed massive power draws from the supposedly deactivated facility, and thermal scans indicated the presence of multiple heat signatures in areas that should have been empty for decades. Torres positioned her team around the perimeter while she approached the farmhouse. Margaret Henderson appeared on the porch before she could knock, her weathered hands wrapped around a cup of coffee and her expression suggesting she had been expecting this visit. "You're here about the bunker," Margaret said simply. "I figured someone would show up eventually." Agent Torres studied the elderly woman, trying to reconcile the classified reports about a secure government facility with the reality of a grandmother who seemed entirely unimpressed by federal authority. "Mrs. Henderson, I need you to understand that you and your associates have accessed highly classified materials." The penalty for saving lives?" Margaret interrupted. "Agent Torres, yes, I know who you are. Your identification is showing. Those beings down there are dying. They've been dying for 70 years while your government ignored them." The mental touch came without warning, a gentle presence in Torres's mind that conveyed images and emotions rather than words. She saw the Draconis as they truly were, refugees fleeing genocide, scholars and healers who had sought sanctuary on Earth only to be forgotten and abandoned. Kythera materialized from the shadows near the barn, his scaled form moving with fluid grace despite his imposing size. Torres's hand moved instinctively toward her weapon, but the alien's projected emotions conveyed only sadness and hope. "No threat or aggression. Agent Torres," Kythera's voice resonated directly in her mind. "We understand your concerns about security and protocol, but your species and mine share something precious, the ability to choose compassion over convenience." Torres had been trained to handle first contact scenarios, though the training had always assumed aliens would arrive in ships, not emerge from forgotten government bunkers. The situation required decisions far above her pay grade, but the beings around her radiated a peaceful intelligence that made traditional threat assessments seem inadequate. "I need to contact my superiors," she said finally. "This situation requires approval from the highest levels," Margaret smiled. "While you're making phone calls, would you like to see what we've accomplished down there? These young people have done something extraordinary." The descent into the bunker revealed a transformation Torres could never have imagined. The sterile, abandoned facility had become a bustling medical center, where humans and aliens worked side by side. Sarah Chen was teaching a group of awakened Draconis about human anatomy while learning their advanced healing techniques in return. Marcus Williams had connected with the facility's historical databases and was documenting the Draconis' scientific knowledge, discoveries that could advance human understanding in dozens of fields. Tommy Henderson had integrated the alien power systems with human engineering, creating hybrid technologies that exceeded the capabilities of either species alone. Most remarkably, The Draconis themselves had transformed. No longer the dying refugees in failing pods, they moved with purpose and dignity, their crystalline wings catching and refracting light in patterns that seemed almost artistic. They had begun decorating their living spaces with intricate carvings and bioluminescent plants. They were growing in the facility's hydroponic gardens. Torres watched a Draconis healer named Zephyr work with Margaret to treat one of their own who had suffered cellular damage during the long hibernation. The alien's clawed hands moved with surgical precision while Margaret provided instruments and monitored vital signs, their cooperation seamless despite the vast differences in their biology. They're not just surviving, Torres realized. They're rebuilding their civilization. Kythera nodded. Your species gave us something we had lost, hope. In return, we offer knowledge, friendship, and perhaps most importantly, proof that intelligence and compassion can bridge any divide. The facility's communication array had been upgraded with human components, and Marcus explained that they were close to establishing contact with other Draconis colonies. The news that Earth's refugees had survived would bring joy to scattered communities across the galaxy, but it would also reveal humanity's location to any Draconis allies or enemies. The Void Hunters, Torres said, reading from the classified files on her tablet, the species that destroyed the Draconis homeworld. If we announce our location, the Void Hunters were defeated centuries ago, Kythera assured her through the mental link. But your concern shows wisdom. Contact with the greater galactic community will bring both opportunities and challenges for humanity. Torres established a secure communication link with Washington, providing real-time video feeds from the facility. The reaction from her superiors was predictable: shock, concern about security implications, and heated debates about containment versus cooperation. Secretary of Defense Patricia Morrison appeared on the screen within hours, her expression grim. Agent Torres, I need to know if these beings represent a threat to national security. Before Torres could respond, Kythera stepped into view of the camera. The Draconis had spent considerable time learning human communication protocols, and his English, while accented by his alien vocal structure, was perfectly clear. Secretary Morrison, he said with a slight bow, my people have spent 70 years as guests on your world, forgotten but grateful for sanctuary. We offer our knowledge and friendship freely, asking only for the chance to contribute to the greater good of both our species. The secretary's expression softened slightly. Your people were classified for reasons of global security. The world of 1952 was not ready for proof of alien life. Perhaps, Kythera replied, but the world of 2025 faces challenges that our combined knowledge might help solve. Climate change, resource depletion, disease, these are problems both our species understand. Margaret stepped forward, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had seen both the best and worst of human nature. Secretary Morrison, I've been a nurse, a mother, and a grandmother. I've seen people at their strongest and their weakest. These beings aren't a threat. They're an opportunity to be better than we've ever been. The conversations continued for days, with government officials, scientists, and military advisors all weighing in on the unprecedented situation. Meanwhile, work in the facility continued as more Draconis were successfully revived, and the hybrid technologies developed by the human-alien team proved increasingly impressive. Sarah had made a breakthrough in understanding Draconis healing abilities, discovering that their cellular regeneration could be partially replicated in human tissue using modified alien proteins. The medical applications were staggering. Spinal cord injuries could be repaired, organ damage reversed, and genetic disorders corrected at the cellular level. Tommy and Marcus had developed new energy storage systems based on Draconis crystal technology, devices that could store massive amounts of power in compact formats while producing no harmful byproducts. The environmental implications alone could revolutionize human energy production. Most importantly, the cultural exchange was proving as valuable as the technological one. The Draconis possessed art forms based on light manipulation and harmonic frequencies that created beauty beyond human imagination, while human music and literature fascinated the aliens with their emotional complexity. Torres found herself serving as an unofficial ambassador, translating not just between languages but between worldviews. Her reports to Washington emphasized the peaceful nature of the Draconis and the enormous benefits of cooperation. But she knew that fear and suspicion ran deep in government institutions. The decision came down to President Chen, who, after extensive consultation with advisors and allies, authorized limited cooperation under strict security protocols. The Draconis would remain classified, but a small team of scientists and officials would be permitted to work with them on projects of mutual benefit. However, the Draconis had their own plans. Kythera revealed that their ship's communication array, once fully repaired, would automatically signal their survival to other colonies. The question was no longer whether humanity would make contact with galactic civilization, but how prepared they would be when it happened. Change is coming whether we choose it or not, Kythera explained to Torres during one of their evening conversations. The question is whether humanity will meet that change with fear or with hope. As Torres looked around the bustling facility, watching humans and aliens work together with growing friendship and understanding, she realized that perhaps humanity was more ready for the future than anyone had imagined. 3 months after the government's official acknowledgement of the Draconis presence, the hidden facility had evolved into something unprecedented, a true partnership between two species working toward common goals. The initial team of Margaret, Tommy, Sarah, and Marcus had grown into a carefully selected group of scientists, engineers, and medical professionals from around the world. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a xenogeologist from the European Space Agency, had been studying the crystalline structures that formed the basis of Draconis technology. These living crystals could grow into complex patterns that served as both biological tissue and mechanical components, blurring the line between organic and artificial systems in ways that challenged human understanding of engineering. The crystals responded to electromagnetic fields and could be programmed through harmonic frequencies, essentially allowing the Draconis to grow their tools and technologies rather than manufacturing them. Under Dr. Vasquez's guidance, human engineers were learning to cultivate similar crystal matrices, opening possibilities for self-repairing buildings, adaptive spacecraft, and medical implants that could evolve with their users' needs. Commander James Park, a veteran NASA astronaut, had become fascinated with Draconis flight capabilities. Their wings weren't just for atmospheric flight. The crystalline membranes could manipulate gravitational fields, allowing them to achieve limited spaceflight without mechanical assistance. The implications for human space exploration were staggering. Imagine spacecraft that could land on any world without need for landing strips, Park explained to his colleagues. The Draconis don't build ships, they grow them, and the vessels adapt to whatever environment they encounter. Working alongside Zephyr, one of the most skilled Draconis healers, Sarah had developed new surgical techniques that combined human precision with alien regenerative medicine. Their first major success came with treating a paralyzed veteran named Robert Kim, whose spinal cord injury had left him wheelchair-bound for 8 years. The procedure involved introducing modified Draconis healing proteins directly into Kim's nervous system, while using crystalline implants to guide cellular regeneration. The process took 3 weeks, during which Kim's damaged neural pathways slowly rebuilt themselves under careful monitoring by both human and alien medical teams. When Robert Kim stood up and took his first steps in nearly a decade, even the usually composed Draconis shed tears of joy. The success opened the door to treating countless other conditions previously considered incurable, from degenerative diseases to traumatic injuries. Margaret had become something of a grandmother figure to the entire facility, human and Draconis alike. Her natural empathy and decades of medical experience made her invaluable in bridging cultural gaps and mediating disagreements between the species. She had also developed a particularly close relationship with Valara, the young Draconis female who had nearly died during the first system failure. Valara was an artist, one of the few among the survivors whose primary talents lay in creative expression rather than science or healing. She had begun teaching human team members the Draconis art of light sculpture, creating 3-dimensional images from controlled photons that could convey complex emotions and stories without words. Art is the first language, Valara explained through her developing English skills. Before science, before tools, beings create beauty to share their inner worlds with others. Her light sculptures were becoming increasingly sophisticated, incorporating human concepts and experiences that created entirely new forms of artistic expression. The hybrid art forms were so compelling that the facility had begun recording them for potential future public release. Tommy had achieved the breakthrough everyone had been hoping for, successful, repair of the primary communication array. The system was now capable of sending signals across interstellar distances, though the power requirements were enormous. More importantly, they had received responses. The first message came from New Dracosia, a Draconis colony established in the Kepler 442 system. The transmission contained decades of mourning for the presumed dead Earth refugees, followed by overwhelming joy at discovering their survival. But the second message was more significant. It came from the Galactic Cooperation Council, an alliance of peaceful species that had formed after the defeat of the Void Hunters. Earth has been under protective observation since the Draconis crash, the message explained. Your species' treatment of our refugees will determine your eligibility for galactic citizenship. The implications were staggering. Humanity was essentially undergoing a test, with their behavior toward the Draconis serving as evidence of their readiness to join a larger galactic community. The cooperation and friendship that had developed naturally in the facility was being evaluated by advanced civilizations across the galaxy. Agent Torres had been promoted to Director of Xenological Affairs, a new government position created specifically to manage humanity's first contact situation. She worked closely with President Chen to develop policies for eventual public disclosure, while ensuring the Draconis were treated as honored guests rather than subjects of study. The most challenging aspect of her job was managing the various world governments' reactions to the situation. Some nations demanded access to Draconis technology for military applications, while others insisted on establishing their own diplomatic relationships with the aliens. The United Nations had formed a special committee on extraterrestrial affairs, though most of its members were still struggling to accept the reality of the situation. Dr. Amara Okafor, a linguist from Oxford University, had made remarkable progress in understanding Draconis language and thought patterns. Their communication was far more complex than human speech, incorporating telepathic elements, harmonic frequencies, and even controlled pheromone releases that conveyed emotional context. They don't just speak, Dr. Okafor explained. They communicate with their entire being, mind, voice, body chemistry, even the way they move their wings. It's like trying to understand a symphony when you've only known single notes. Her work had led to the development of translation devices that could convert between human and Draconis communication modes, though the emotional subtleties often required direct telepathic contact to fully understand. Meanwhile, Marcus had been working with Cathera to compile a comprehensive record of Draconis scientific knowledge. The aliens possessed understanding of physics, biology, and mathematics that surpassed human knowledge by centuries in some areas. Their approach to science was holistic, seeing connections between disciplines that human researchers typically studied in isolation. They understand that everything is connected, Marcus explained to his Earth-based colleagues via secure video link. Biology affects chemistry, which influences physics, which shapes mathematics. They don't separate knowledge into categories the way we do. This integrated approach had already led to breakthroughs in several fields. Draconis' understanding of quantum mechanics had helped human physicists develop new theories about the nature of space and time, while their biological sciences offered insights into consciousness and the relationship between mind and matter. The facility's success had not gone unnoticed by the wider scientific community. Despite the classification levels, rumors were spreading through universities and research institutions worldwide. Several prominent scientists had publicly called for transparency regarding unusual developments in extraterrestrial research. Dr. Kenji Tanaka, a Nobel Prize-winning physicist from Tokyo University, published an open letter demanding that any discoveries related to alien contact be shared with the global scientific community. His letter was signed by over 300 researchers from 50 countries, putting pressure on governments to reveal what they knew. The pressure intensified when amateur astronomers began detecting the high-energy transmissions from the facility's communication array. While the signals were encrypted and their content remained secret, their artificial nature and enormous power levels were obvious to anyone with sophisticated equipment. Social media buzzed with speculation about government cover-ups and secret alien contact programs. Conspiracy theories ranged from wildly inaccurate to surprisingly close to the truth, creating a climate of anticipation and suspicion that made continued secrecy increasingly difficult. President Chen faced the most difficult decision of her administration. The Draconis had made it clear that they were prepared for public contact whenever humanity felt ready. The Galactic Cooperation Council had indicated that Earth's eventual membership would require transparency between governments and their citizens. The question was no longer whether to reveal the truth, but when and how to do it in a way that wouldn't cause panic or social disruption. The success of the human-Draconis partnership in the facility suggested that people could adapt to the reality of alien contact, but scaling that acceptance to a global population presented enormous challenges. As winter approached, the facility buzzed with activity as both species worked together to prepare for what everyone knew was coming, the moment when humanity would officially join the galactic community, ready or not. The decision to reveal humanity's first contact with alien life came not from government planning, but from an unexpected crisis that forced the truth into the open. During a routine medical procedure, Dr. Sarah Chen was accidentally exposed to a massive dose of radiation from a malfunctioning piece of equipment. The injury would have been fatal within hours, but Zephyr immediately began emergency treatment using advanced Draconis healing techniques. The procedure required resources that weren't available in the underground facility, forcing the team to transport Sarah to Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore. The sight of a 8-foot-tall, winged, scaled being walking through the emergency room carrying an unconscious human doctor shattered the veil of secrecy that had protected the project for months. Videos of Zephyr's arrival went viral within minutes. Cell phone footage showed the Draconis healer moving with practiced efficiency through the hospital corridors, his crystalline medical instruments glowing with bioluminescent energy as he worked to save Sarah's life. The alien's obvious intelligence and clear concern for his human patient were impossible to deny or dismiss. President Chen appeared on television 6 hours later, delivering a speech that changed human history forever. Standing beside Kithra in the Oval Office, she announced the existence of the Draconis and their 70-year presence on Earth. The president's calm demeanor and the alien leader's dignified presence helped temper the initial shock. But nothing could have prepared humanity for the magnitude of the revelation. The being standing beside me is Kithara, a representative of the Draconis people, President Chen announced to a global audience of over 2 billion viewers. His people crash-landed on Earth in 1952 as refugees fleeing the destruction of their homeworld. For nearly 7 decades, they have remained hidden, dying slowly in a forgotten government facility, until a remarkable woman named Margaret Henderson discovered them and chose to help. The president's speech outlined the basic facts of the situation while emphasizing the peaceful nature of the contact and the benefits both species had gained from cooperation. She announced the establishment of the Department of Interspecies Affairs and revealed that Earth had been in communication with other alien civilizations for months. The global reaction was everything experts had feared and hoped for simultaneously. Stock markets crashed as investors panicked about the implications for existing technologies and economic systems. Religious leaders grappled with theological questions about humanity's place in the universe. Scientists around the world demanded immediate access to alien knowledge and technology. But there were also moments of profound beauty and hope. Children drew pictures of Draconis and humans playing together. Artists created works inspired by the light sculptures Valara had been teaching at the facility. Musicians composed pieces incorporating the harmonic frequencies used in Draconis communication. Margaret Henderson became an overnight international celebrity, though she handled the attention with the same practical grace she had shown throughout the crisis. News crews surrounded her farm, and she spent hours each day answering questions from reporters who struggled to understand how a 78-year-old grandmother had become humanity's first alien ambassador. "I just did what anyone with a heart would do," Margaret told a CNN correspondent. "They needed help and I was there. It's really that simple." Her straightforward approach to the situation helped calm public fears and demonstrated that contact with alien life didn't require dramatic changes to human nature, just the application of basic compassion and common sense. Sarah's recovery became a symbol of successful human-Draconis cooperation. The combination of alien healing technology and human medical expertise had not only saved her life but enhanced her cellular regeneration capabilities. She emerged from the treatment stronger and healthier than before the accident, living proof that the partnership between species could benefit everyone involved. The medical breakthrough led to an avalanche of requests from hospitals and research institutions worldwide. Patients with terminal illnesses, paralyzed veterans, and victims of genetic disorders all sought access to Draconis healing technology. The demand far exceeded what the small group of awakened aliens could provide, creating both ethical dilemmas and unprecedented opportunities. Tommy Henderson found himself at the center of a technological revolution as governments and corporations competed for access to Draconis crystal technology. The energy storage systems he had helped develop could power entire cities without producing harmful emissions, while the adaptive materials could revolutionize everything from architecture to space exploration. Major technology companies offered billions of dollars for licensing rights, but the Draconis insisted that their knowledge be shared freely with all of humanity. The concept of patenting naturally occurring alien technologies raised complex legal questions that courts were still struggling to address. Knowledge belongs to all thinking beings, Kythera explained during his first public press conference. We survived because humans chose to help us without thought of profit or advantage. We offer our knowledge in the same spirit. The Galactic Cooperation Council had been monitoring Earth's reaction to the revelation with great interest. 3 days after President Chen's announcement, they transmitted a formal message congratulating humanity on their handling of first contact and extending an invitation for Earth to apply for provisional membership in the galactic community. The message came with detailed information about the Council's structure and requirements. Membership required meeting specific criteria related to species maturity, technological development, and ethical standards. Most importantly, prospective members had to demonstrate their ability to treat other intelligent species with respect and dignity. Your treatment of the Draconis refugees serves as evidence of your species' moral development, the Council's message explained. However, full membership requires consensus among your global population and commitment to peaceful cooperation with other civilizations. The revelation that Earth was essentially undergoing an evaluation created intense debate among world leaders. Some nations pushed for immediate acceptance of Council membership, while others worried about losing sovereignty to an alien governing body. The United Nations called emergency sessions to develop a unified human response to the galactic invitation. Meanwhile, the facility that had started as a secret bunker had been expanded into a full diplomatic and research complex. Representatives from dozens of countries worked alongside human scientists and Draconis specialists to develop protocols for ongoing interspecies cooperation. Dr. Vasquez's crystal cultivation techniques had advanced to the point where human-grown Draconis crystals could be used in practical applications. The first hybrid technologies were already being tested: medical devices that could adapt to individual patients, building materials that could repair themselves, and communication systems that operated through quantum entanglement rather than electromagnetic transmission. Commander Park had successfully piloted the first human-built craft using Draconis gravitational manipulation technology. The small test vehicle could hover silently, change direction instantaneously, and travel at speeds that conventional aircraft couldn't match. The implications for transportation, exploration, and defense were revolutionary. The success of the Human-Draconis partnership had attracted attention from other alien species within the Galactic Cooperation Council. Messages arrived from the Aquatic Collective, a group of water-based civilizations, and the Silicon Alliance, composed of artificial intelligences that had achieved consciousness. Each species expressed interest in establishing formal diplomatic relationships with Earth. However, not all of the galactic community was pleased with humanity's emergence. Intelligence reports indicated that several aggressive species, including remnants of the Void Hunters, viewed Earth's potential Council membership as a threat to their own expansion plans. The peaceful contact scenario everyone had hoped for might not remain peaceful for long. Religious communities worldwide grappled with the theological implications of confirmed alien life. Some denominations embraced the revelation as proof of divine creativity and the vastness of God's creation, while others struggled to reconcile their beliefs with the reality of intelligent non-human species. Pope Francis issued a statement welcoming the Draconis as children of the same divine creator and called for interfaith dialogue about humanity's place in a larger cosmic community. Buddhist and Hindu leaders found the concept of multiple intelligent species more compatible with their existing beliefs, while some evangelical Christian groups denounced the aliens as demonic deceptions. The economic disruptions caused by the revelation were gradually stabilizing as markets adapted to the new reality. Companies that invested early in alien-human hybrid technology saw enormous returns, while traditional energy and manufacturing sectors struggled to compete with revolutionary draconis alternatives. Labor unions expressed concerns about job displacement as alien technologies automated many human tasks, but economists pointed out that the technological revolution was also creating entirely new industries and employment opportunities. The transition would be challenging, but history suggested that the first diplomatic ship from the Galactic Cooperation Council arrived in Earth orbit exactly 1 year after Margaret Henderson discovered the dying Draconis in her underground bunker. The vessel, designated as the Harmony Station, was a marvel of engineering that incorporated technologies from dozens of different species. Its arrival marked humanity's formal introduction to the broader galactic community. Captain Zeltar of the Crystalline Hegemony served as the Council's primary ambassador to Earth. His species resembled living gemstones, their bodies composed of sentient silicon matrices that could reshape themselves at will, standing 8 feet tall and radiating soft prismatic light. He was both beautiful and utterly alien in ways that the familiar Draconis were not. "Greetings, people of Earth." Zeltar's translated voice resonated through every television, radio, and internet-connected device on the planet. "Your species has passed the first test of galactic citizenship through your compassionate treatment of the Draconis refugees. We come to offer formal evaluation for full membership in our community." The landing ceremony took place at the expanded facility that had grown around Margaret's farm. World leaders, scientists, and media representatives gathered to witness the historic moment when humanity officially joined the interstellar community. Margaret herself stood beside President Chen as the alien delegation descended from their ship. Among the delegation was Thyra, a Draconis from New Dracosia, who had traveled across the galaxy to reunite with the Earth refugees. Her arrival brought tears to Kithara's large eyes as they embraced in the ancient greeting of their people, wings spread wide and harmonizing in frequencies that made nearby crystals sing in sympathy. "I had given you up for dead," Thyra whispered through the telepathic link that all Draconis shared. "For 70 years we mourned your loss and honored your memory. To find you not only alive but thriving brings joy beyond expression." The reunion was broadcast globally, showing the depth of emotion and family bonds that transcended species lines. Human viewers saw clearly that the aliens were not emotionless beings of pure logic, but individuals with the same capacity for love, loss, and hope that defined humanity itself. Dr. Kenji Tanaka, the Nobel laureate who had demanded transparency about alien contact, found himself appointed to lead the Scientific Evaluation Committee, working alongside researchers from 12 different alien species. He began documenting humanity's technological and cultural achievements for formal review by the Galactic Council. "Human science is remarkably intuitive," reported Dr. Vexhai, an amphibious researcher from the Aquatic Collective. "Where other species develop technologies through systematic progression, humans often make dramatic leaps through creative inspiration and innovative thinking." The evaluation process revealed humanity's unique position among galactic civilizations. Most species had developed either advanced technology or sophisticated social structures, but few had achieved both. Humanity's combination of scientific achievement and artistic expression, particularly their ability to adapt and cooperate with radically different species, marked them as potentially valuable council members. However, the assessment also identified significant challenges. Human conflicts, environmental damage, and social inequalities raised concerns among some council members about the species' readiness for galactic citizenship. The ongoing wars, pollution, and poverty on Earth suggested that humans still struggled with the basic requirements of planetary stewardship. Margaret found herself serving as an unofficial cultural ambassador, explaining human nature to beings who struggled to understand concepts like nationalism, religious conflict, and economic inequality. Her conversations with alien dignitaries often took place in her kitchen, over cups of tea and homemade cookies that had become legendary among the diplomatic corps. "Humans are still growing up as a species," she explained to a delegation of energy beings from the Photonic Collective. We make mistakes, sometimes terrible ones, but we also learn from them. The important thing is that we keep trying to be better. Sarah Chen had become the director of the Interspecies Medical Exchange, overseeing the integration of alien healing techniques with human medicine. Her facility in Baltimore had successfully treated over 3,000 patients using Draconis regenerative therapy, while training human doctors in techniques that seemed miraculous by Earth standards. The medical breakthrough had profound implications beyond individual healing. The Draconis understanding of consciousness and its relationship to physical health opened new avenues for treating mental illness, addiction, and neurological disorders. Depression and anxiety, conditions that had plagued humanity for millennia, could now be addressed at the cellular level through targeted regenerative therapy. Tommy Henderson had founded the first human alien technology corporation, developing hybrid systems that combined the best of both species' capabilities. His crystal-based energy storage systems were already powering renewable energy grids across 6 continents, while his gravitational manipulation devices were revolutionizing transportation and space exploration. The economic implications of alien technology integration were staggering. Traditional energy companies had either adapted to the new technologies or faced extinction, while entirely new industries emerged around crystal cultivation, gravitational engineering, and consciousness-based computing systems. Marcus Williams had become Earth's first xenoarchaeologist, studying the ruins of ancient civilizations throughout the galaxy. His work with the Draconis had revealed that Earth itself had been visited by multiple alien species throughout its history. Though previous contacts had been brief and largely undocumented, archaeological evidence suggested that various human mythologies might be based on real encounters with extraterrestrial visitors. Dragons in particular appeared in cultures worldwide, possibly reflecting ancient memories of Draconis contact. The revelation added new dimensions to human understanding of their own history and place. In the galactic timeline, the Harmony Station served as a neutral meeting ground where humans could interact with representatives from dozens of alien species. The diversity was overwhelming: sentient gas clouds from stellar nurseries, hive-minded insect collectives, artificial intelligences that had evolved from ancient computer networks, and energy beings that existed as pure consciousness without physical form. Each species brought unique perspectives and capabilities to the galactic community. The Photonic Collective could travel at light speed and communicate across vast distances instantaneously. The Silicon Alliance possessed computational abilities that dwarfed human technology, while the Aquatic Collective had developed biotechnology that could terraform entire worlds. Among the most intriguing were the Temporal Syndicate, a group of species that existed across multiple time streams simultaneously. Their representatives appeared as shifting, translucent figures that spoke of past and future events as if they were happening in the present. They had particular interest in humanity's potential contributions to galactic temporal stability. Your species exists at a unique temporal nexus, explained Chronarch Zeftos, through a translation matrix that struggled with the concept of nonlinear time. Human consciousness interacts with temporal flows in ways that could stabilize or destabilize the entire galactic timeline. Your development must be carefully guided. The revelation that humanity might have temporal significance added new urgency to the evaluation process. Several council members argued for immediate full membership to ensure proper guidance of human development, while others insisted on extended observation to prevent potential temporal disasters. Meanwhile, intelligence reports confirmed the worst fears about hostile alien species. The Void Hunter remnants had formed an alliance with several aggressive civilizations and were planning attacks on newly contacted species to prevent the Council from expanding its membership. Earth's location had been compromised, and military preparations were already underway. Admiral Jennifer Hayes, former commander of the Pacific Fleet, found herself appointed to lead humanity's first interstellar defense force. Working with Draconis military advisors and Council strategists, she began developing Earth's capabilities to defend itself against threats that existed on a cosmic scale. "We're not just protecting our planet anymore," Admiral Hayes explained to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. "We're defending our right to exist as an independent species in a galaxy that doesn't always welcome newcomers." The Draconis had shared their military technologies, including shields that could deflect energy weapons and defensive systems that could protect entire continents from orbital bombardment. However, the weapons were designed for defense rather than aggression, reflecting the peaceful nature of Council membership. Human engineers worked frantically to adapt alien defensive technologies to Earth's existing military infrastructure. The planet's nuclear arsenals were being converted into energy sources for the massive shield generators, while space-based platforms were constructed using hybrid human-alien technologies. The transformation was happening at unprecedented speed. Within months, Earth went from a single-planet species to an active participant in galactic politics and commerce. Human ambassadors were. The attack came without warning during what should have been humanity's final evaluation ceremony. Void hunter ships materialized at the edge of the solar system using stolen cloaking technology, their dark hulls absorbing light like wounds in space itself. The remnants of the ancient enemy had formed an alliance called the Dominion of Shadows, dedicated to preventing new species from joining the Galactic Cooperation Council. Admiral Hayes received the alert while standing beside Captain Zeltar on the observation deck of Harmony Station. The crystalline ambassador's prismatic form flickered with alarm colors as sensors detected the massive fleet approaching Earth's outer defenses. 18 heavy cruisers, 47 attack corvettes, and 3 dreadnought-class vessels, the tactical officer reported. Estimated arrival at Earth orbit in 4 hours. The numbers were overwhelming. Earth's hastily constructed defense grid, impressive as it was for a species new to interstellar warfare, was designed to repel raiders and small attack forces. The Dominion had brought enough firepower to shatter planets. Margaret Henderson was tending to her garden when the emergency broadcasts began, calmly continuing to water her tomatoes as news anchors struggled to explain the approaching alien armada. At 79, she had lived through enough crises to understand that panic was rarely useful. Tommy found her there an hour later, his face pale with fear and determination. "Grandma, they're evacuating the facility. You need to come with us to the underground bunkers." Margaret looked up at the sky where the first hints of the alien fleet were becoming visible as dark spots against the stars. "I think I'll stay here, dear. Someone should be home when this is all over." The Draconis refugees had gathered in the facility's main chamber, their telepathic network buzzing with shared memories of the Void Hunter's previous attacks. Kythera stood at the center of the group, his ancient eyes reflecting decades of loss and determination. "These are not the creatures who destroyed our homeworld." He addressed both his people and the human team that had become their family. "These are scavengers feeding on old hatred. They have forgotten what true strength means." Zephyr and the other Draconis healers were already preparing for casualties, while the scientific staff worked frantically to protect decades of research data. The knowledge gained from human-alien cooperation represented advances that could benefit the entire galaxy, but only if it survived the coming battle. Sarah Chen had refused evacuation from her medical facility in Baltimore, instead organizing emergency treatment centers that could handle both human and alien casualties. Her understanding of Draconis physiology, combined with the hybrid healing technologies they had developed, made her one of the few people capable of treating wounded council representatives. "The Dominion wants us to be afraid," she told her staff as they prepared for the worst. "They want us to prove we're not ready for galactic citizenship by cowering in fear. Instead, we're going to show them what humans do when our friends are threatened." The first phase of the battle took place in the asteroid belt, where Earth's outer defense platforms engaged the Dominion fleet, using gravitational manipulation weapons derived from Draconis technology. The human-designed systems were crude compared to their alien counterparts, but they carried something the enemy hadn't expected: human ingenuity and the desperate creativity of a species fighting for survival. Commander Park piloted the lead defense squadron, his mixed squadron of human and Draconis pilots working in perfect coordination. The aliens' natural flight abilities combined with human tactical thinking created a fighting force unlike anything the Dominion had encountered. "They're adapting their formation," Park reported as Void Hunter ships began spreading out to avoid the gravitational weapons, switching to pattern Delta 7. The human defense pattern was based on Sarah's surgical techniques, precise, adaptive, and designed to minimize collateral damage while maximizing effectiveness. The Dominion's brutal assault tactics were unprepared for an enemy that treated warfare like delicate medical procedure. Captain Zeltar had taken command of the Council ships defending Earth, his crystalline form interfacing directly with the Harmony Station's control systems. The massive diplomatic vessel transformed into a fortress of light, its peaceful facades retracting to reveal defensive weapons that had been hidden from human view. All Council species stand with Earth, Zeltar announced over the communications network. The Dominion threatens not just humanity, but the principle that growth and cooperation can triumph over destruction and hatred. The battle raged for 6 hours across the solar system. Dominion ships pressed their attack with ruthless efficiency, while the combined Human Council defense forces fought with a coordination that transcended species barriers. Draconis healers kept human pilots conscious through injuries that should have been fatal, while human engineers improvised repairs to alien technology using spare parts and creative thinking. The turning point came when Marcus Williams, monitoring the battle from the underground facility, made a crucial observation. The Dominion ships were using quantum communication arrays nearly identical to those found in ancient ruins throughout the galaxy. The technology was older than any known civilization, suggesting the Void Hunters had been using stolen knowledge from the beginning. "They're not innovators," Marcus announced over the tactical network. "They're parasites who've been using the same stolen technology for millennia. If we can disrupt their quantum communication matrix, their fleet coordination will collapse." Tommy Henderson and a team of Draconis crystal engineers worked frantically to modify the facility's communication array into a quantum disruption weapon. The process required precise harmonic frequencies that could only be generated by the hybrid human-alien crystals. They had been growing for months. Margaret watched the sky from her garden as the final phase of the battle began. The modified communication array sent pulses of disruptive energy toward the Dominion fleet, each pulse tuned to frequencies that would interfere with their stolen quantum technology. The effect was immediate and devastating. Dominion ships found themselves unable to coordinate attacks, their formations dissolving into chaos as individual captains lost contact with their commanders. The precisely orchestrated assault became a scattered group of confused vessels fighting individual battles they couldn't win. Human and Council forces pressed their advantage, using superior coordination to systematically disable Dominion ships without destroying them entirely. The goal was not vengeance but proof that strength and mercy could coexist, a demonstration of the values that defined Galactic Council membership. The battle ended when the Dominion flagship, its communication systems completely disrupted, attempted to ram Harmony Station in a final desperate attack. Cathara and 12 other Draconis linked their minds to generate a gravitational field that deflected the massive vessel into empty space, where it was captured by Council boarding parties. In the aftermath, as rescue teams searched for survivors and engineers assessed the damage, the full scope of humanity's achievement became clear. A species that had been unaware of alien life just 2 years earlier had successfully defended itself and its allies against an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. The Dominion prisoners, when interrogated, revealed that they had been monitoring Earth since the initial Draconis contact. They had planned to destroy humanity before the species could fully integrate with the Council, believing that human adaptability and creativity posed a threat to their expansion plans. "Your species learns too quickly," the captured Dominion commander explained through a translation matrix. "You take the knowledge of others and transform it into something new and dangerous. We could not allow such unpredictability to spread." The evaluation committee's final report was unanimous. Humanity had demonstrated not only the technological capability and moral development required for Council membership, but also the courage and creativity that could benefit the entire galactic community. Earth's defense of the Council representatives, despite the personal risk, demonstrates a commitment to principles that transcend species loyalty, Captain Zeltar announced during the formal ceremony. Humanity is ready to take its place among the stars. The celebration took place in Margaret's garden, where it had all begun with an old woman's curiosity about a hidden bunker. Representatives from dozens of species gathered around tables laden with human food and alien delicacies, sharing stories and forming friendships that would last for generations. Margaret sat in her favorite chair, surrounded by the family she had gained through her simple decision to help beings in need. Kithara sat beside her, his ancient eyes bright with gratitude, while Sarah and Tommy discussed plans for the interspecies medical college they were founding. "You know," Margaret said as she watched children, both human and young Draconis playing together in the fading sunlight. I never expected my retirement to be quite so exciting. Valara's latest light sculpture danced above the gathering, a complex pattern that told the story of two species finding each other in the darkness and choosing to build something beautiful together. The art form had evolved beyond anything either human or Draconis could have created alone, becoming something